Welcome to Comic and Screen. I am Sam Otten, and with me, as usual, is Jason Book. And in this video, we're going to be covering Batman issue number 5. This is written by Tom King with art by David Finch and colors by Jordi Belair. And this is part 5 of the I Am Gotham storyline, which is the first kind of story arc for the rebirth era of Batman. So in the last issue, we saw that Psycho Pirate has worked his stuff and basically sent Gotham on a rage kind of anger type of thing where he's sort of taking out his anger on the whole city of Gotham. And Psycho Pirate also worked on Gotham Girl and had given her kind of these fear, I'm scared emotions kind of out of control on Gotham Girl. So that leads us into this issue. Things get pretty heated, they get pretty intense, and we do get to a sort of a resolution. But first of all, Jason, let me just get your reactions to this installment in the story.
Well, I really liked the beginning. The part with Alfred was awesome. They were totally reminding me of something they would have done in the old comics. And my tiny little nitpicky, maybe he wouldn't have been saying that dialogue about Thomas Wayne. Maybe he would have had it somehow on a recording or something cool and just listening to it. I don't know. But that's nitpicky. It was a very cool scene. Gotham coming in, I enjoyed it at first. Kind of thought the whole story arc and the way Batman was being written was that he could do anything. The guy stopped a plane, for God's sakes, in the first issue, with a little help from these characters. So I kind of would have liked to see him be the one to be able to take Gotham down somehow, because Batman's always got a plan. Seeing the Justice League come in was cool, but it wasn't believable to me that this guy could take down the Justice League. I'm sorry, he's not experienced enough. I don't care where he bought his powers from. And then we'll get to the ending between us talking about it after. I thought the ending was not great, but overall I really enjoyed the issue still, and there was definitely some interesting concepts thrown in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for me, definitely I had some spots that I was really happy with. You mentioned the Alfred scene. That was awesome. I was just like smiling and enjoying that scene of Alfred actually putting on the bat suit
Totally.
and going in the Batmobile and then standing there. And that was great art there too, to just capture like Alfred's posture and stuff,
Yeah,
and
totally.
the suit not quite fitting him. I thought it was great how they actually drew that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, to me that's a scene where like I'm gonna remember that scene from this issue.
Totally.
Like remember when Alfred actually had to put on the suit to just buy a few minutes for Batman to be able to get there.
Yeah.
So I like that kind of creative touch. And for me, yeah, I thought it did bring the Psycho Pirate and the Gotham stuff. It brought it to its conclusion, where Gotham has all this anger and he's bringing it out on Gotham City, and Batman kind of redirects it all onto himself, and he said, I'm the one that's failed. If I would have stopped that criminal, you would have still had your parents or whatever it was. And just Batman takes all of that anger and all the failures of Gotham City and all its problems onto himself, which I thought is kind of representative of the character of Batman.
Totally.
So I thought that was kind of good. And then, yeah, the fight going on. I was a little surprised to see the Justice League, and I agree with you. I was also a little surprised that he was dispatching with the Justice League.
Yeah.
We got an explanation for it, so I do have to give that to Tom King. Like, Gotham Girl is finally explaining what we were curious about, which was like, did they buy the powers, and then how did they buy the powers? She doesn't say who they bought them from, but they bought them, and it has this sort of like, proportional relationship where you can have either a longer amount of time and less power, or you can have more power and less time, which sort of allows you to get almost infinite power if you're willing to have a very short lifespan. So I think when the Justice League came, Gotham's basically saying, like, I'm going to ratchet this up to amazingly intense power, but it means my lifespan's going to be very short. And that kind of takes some of the edge off so spoiler alert here, if you haven't already been able to tell that we're getting into spoilers, when Gotham Girl kills him, it's maybe not as tragic as it could have been, because Gotham already kind of was killing himself by increasing his power levels so much. He was already basically taking all of the time off of his life.
Yeah, I guess I could see that point. I just think that the DC universe is too rich of a place with all these iconic characters to think that someone could go out and buy a power and go toe-to-toes with Superman. Like, that's not believable to me at all. And I know that sounds ridiculous in a comic with flying aliens and stuff, but there's levels to it. Like, Superman is the man. Like, nobody can beat him unless they got kryptonite or they're doomsday or something like that. There's a reason he is Superman.
Yeah.
So I think I wouldn't have had a problem if he maybe took down the Lanterns easier, because also they're not as experienced. Was Wonder Woman there? I forget.
I think so, yeah. I think Aquaman was there,
As if
Flash.
he could take down
Each of
Wonder
them kind
Woman.
of got
Like,
taken out in one panel, so
yeah,
yeah,
like
it
come
wasn't very
on, man.
respectful of the Justice League.
That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, like so I really like what Tom King has done so far with this arc and the story, but that part has just kind of felt a little rushed over, and they definitely could have stretched a little farther. But they did what they wanted to do, and I did definitely like the part with Batman talking about putting the blame on me. It actually reminded me a lot of the Nolan films where he was like, "I could be the villain. You put it towards me. I'm Batman. I can be anything you need me to be to kind of save the day." So I like that aspect of it a lot, though.
Mm-hmm. And there were some cool moments. So before the Justice League came in, Batman did have some resourcefulness. Like he actually had the Batmobile, plow right into him, and then he had the Bat plane come down right into him. So I mean, Batman was pulling out all the stops, but it just still wasn't enough.
Speaking
to
of,
take out Gotham.
Just before we forget, right before the Batmobile got destroyed again, I was like, I said that line before it was even the comic to myself. I'm like, how many Batmobiles does he have? And then Duke said that line. It was like perfect.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Batman showed what he had, but it just wasn't enough. Then the Gotham Girl stuff came. Let's talk about that last page. So, Gotham Girl is scared because of Psycho Pirate, but she finds, the courage to go out there and stop her brother, and she knows that that's what she has to do. And then the final page of the issue, which is kind of the final page of this I Am Gotham story arc, she seems to jump way into the future and is now like narrating this from the future, and she says like, yeah, every year on the anniversary of Gotham's death we come back to this spot where he died, and it seems like maybe she's married, which is probably married to Duke, I guess, because they had a little bit of sparks in this story arc. But it also was a little weird when she said, like, he died, and I wasn't sure if Batman was also dead in the future.
Yeah.
Gotham's obviously dead. So it was a weird final page, and then it says that the next story coming up is Gotham Girl Year 1.
Yeah. So, like, for me, Sam, this was another part of the ending I really didn't like, because Tom King, what I've read on Grayson and some other books and stuff, he's a good writer. But I think he's biting off a little more he can chew here, because this isn't like a character he's worked on for 5 years and he's already had this plan in his head where he's going to make his masterpiece final issue. Like he's not the guy that did Breaking Bad or whatever from the beginning, or Christopher Nolan or something, whatever. But I think he's kind of writing himself into a corner there, and it's also limiting the character of Duke, because I want to see Duke grow and have his own adventures and have his own, developing relationships with a woman or whatever happens. You're kind of already putting a limit of where he goes, and anyone that writes him kind of has to keep that in mind, if in fact that's what she's referring to.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, to me, I didn't hate it, but I was a little surprised. Like, it did seem like at the end, wow, to say that with Gotham Girl, to allude to that stuff, it was not what I was expecting. I was expecting more like a just kind of modest next step of what the next follow-up story could be, and to me, the Monster Men is a little bit more of a logical step, because that was alluded to throughout this whole thing.
Right.
But what Tom King said on Twitter is that there's a one-shot issue coming, which would be number 6, and then through September there's going to be this Monster Men crossover, which would be like Detective Batman and Nightwing, I believe. So that one I think is the next logical step. So I don't know if Gotham Girl Year 1, if that just means a single issue, it'll just be a one-shot in issue 6, or if it means he's going to do a whole Gotham Girl arc next. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. And I don't know if David Finch is back, because I think the way these guys could knock out so many issues is they kind of had quite a few issues, I think, in the can ahead or something. So we'll see who they get. But I definitely was impressed with Finch. I've always liked his art. He started out kind of as a clone of some other image artists, but he really worked well on Batman here, and I hope he gets to do it some more with the character.
Yeah, for me, the art was really good. A lot of great shots in it. Never pulled me out of the story. I kind of kept going right with it. And even the Justice League looked pretty good. I did notice that Superman had red boots.
I did notice that too.
I like the red boots better than the blue boots, so I didn't mind.
I wonder if that's an editorial thing they forgot, and then they're like, well, since it looks good, let's just go back to the red boots, because it really does go with the character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we'll have to see what that one shot is, if this is the Gotham Girl one shot coming up in just over a week.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.